This is the new Volkswagen T7 California camper van. While the previous California was actually built on a van platform, this new one is based on a car platform. It's essentially a stretched, elongated, bigger version of a Volkswagen Golf. So has moving to a car-based platform meant that this new T7 is just so much better for long distance holidays? To find out, I'm going to give you a detailed demonstration of this vehicle's functionality. Oh, my finger! I'm also going to compare every key feature of the new California to that of its predecessor. And we'll find out if we've made progress or things have taken a step back. Isn't camping so much fun? I'll also see what their beds are like for sleeping in and compare how they drive, but some aren't. I'm Matt Watson and you're watching Carwow Has Gone Camping. What a lovely day for it. Let's just start this video by talking about the design of the new VW California before we get into the interior functionality. The face of it is quite similar to the ID Buzz, so it's more modern looking than the old van, because the last one was based on a van, this is based on a car. And you have a full length light strip here which illuminates at night, and you've got modern headlights in this car and various panels for your driver assistance systems. Moving down the side, wheel sizes start at 16s, rising to 19s. And you'll notice this is where it gets a little bit more car-like with the shapes in the body panel. Oh, and look, as well as a rear door on the driver's side, there's also one here. More on that in a bit. No, shut. Didn't want to do that, did it? Anyway, moving to the back here, you've got your Ocean badging here. And as with the previous generation, you can get different colour schemes and you can spend quite a lot of money personalising your own VW California. At the back, once again, it's kind of slab-sided like a van, but we have some kind of like, ooh, look, a bit of a roof spoiler and some more modern tail lights than before. But really, that's not the interesting thing on this vehicle. It's what they've done to the inside that really matters. Right, let's get into the good stuff about the new VW California and the reconfigured interior. And what I'm going to do is actually talk you through various stages and sections and compare it to the previous version so you can see the difference, and we'll figure out whether this new one is much better. And the first thing I want to show you is this, so stay there. Yes, the fact that the kitchen unit doesn't extend all the way forward, so now you can enter the vehicle on this side too. Now, one of the first things you notice is that there's two individual chairs here in the rear as opposed to a single bench, and this one seems to move much freer backwards and forwards, so it's easier to manoeuvre and slide than in the previous generation car. It's a little bit kind of grabby and temperamental. Now let's look at the space that we've actually got here. So if I slide both of these chairs back, it seems just as roomy as before, and I can recline these chairs as well just by pulling this. So it's nice, it's spacious. Let's try turning around the front chairs, because I always found that a bit problematic in the previous generation model. Now I'm used to them in the old VW California, but they're still a bit of a faff. Let's see if I can do this without ever seeing how it's supposed to be done. So this might be a thing to make it rotate. Now there is no handbrake, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay. That's operator error, but I guess move that a bit more like that. Yeah, that is easier. Now I'm going to put the roof up to create some more space. Now on the T6, this part that you have to open first to allow the roof to go up has a concertina. I've always been worried about breaking it, but this is just one piece unit, so I'm not bothered about that. And on the T6, you would operate the roof using a panel up here, whereas now I just have buttons there. So right, that's up. Now what I'm going to do is lift that up, and so I have standing room, and that brings me on to the kitchen area. So in order to create this ability to walk through the entire van, they've shortened the kitchen area. So on the old T6 you would have two gas burners and then a sink and a fridge on the other side, so it's a much bigger unit. Here we've only got one gas burner. I do see a slight problem with this setup. Wait, I'll just show you the sink while we're at it. Oh. That's got some power. Oops, no, let's not do that again. Can you spot what the problem is? So I want to do some frying. I can stand up here, but the seat's in the way, or I can sit down and fry. Bit of a lazy chef. However, I'm going to show you something which means that's not necessarily such a problem. I can fully remove these seats, if I can just find out how to do it. It's actually quite easy to do. They're not the lightest though, they're over 20 kilos, so you've got to watch your back. Jack, younger person. So now I can stand up here and cook, but you do have to keep the seats outside the car, which means if it rains, that's not going to be possible. So that is a slight problem. Another problem is, compared to the T6, you don't have as much storage in your kitchen area. So here we have the drawer for your cutlery. There's a bit of space in there, I guess, where, look, we have a very small VW, like this VW iron skillet. And on the old T6, there's lots of storage under here, but look, this is where the fridge is. It's actually incorporated in here. I'm not sure that fridge is as big or as useful as on the old T6, which you open from the top. You're going to really want to be able to just walk through the van to think that this setup is better. In here, you do have access to your gas on-off switch, and then you've got a couple of plug sockets there. So you've got one that is powered by an inverter. So if you're a bit off grid, then there's another one that will be powered through the electrical system if you're at a campsite. You do still have storage here, but you know, in the old California, you're basically using that for your clothes and stuff. And as with the other California, you know, you've got an area there for your sheets. I really like the sliding table in the T6. It's really quite useful. However, the table in the T7 is actually stored in the boot. And to put it up, or should I say erect it, you do this. Now the table operates in a very similar fashion to the extra table you have concealed in the sliding door in the T6. So the problem we have here is that if you want a table outside like this, you can't then have a table inside the vehicle. It just somehow doesn't seem like such a natural fit. Can you see? I don't know, this smacks of cost saving to me. Much prefer the sliding table in the T6. I tell a lie, there is a second table, but it's here. So you pull this up, pull that down, slide that out, slot that in, and voila. Now this is fine for a little drinks table, or maybe for chopping vegetables and stuff like that, but I'd rather have the sliding table of a larger size on the inside, and then maybe use the exterior table for this purpose. I'm not sensing that newer is necessarily better right now. To make the lower bed, the first thing you do is take the headrests out, rotate them. Then you pull this lever, push that down, then you push that back, like that. So that is not very comfortable, and it's not, is it? But then you have this mattress here. So I undo the clip, and now I position this. So this folds down like so, and because this base is solid, it covers the gaps. So actually when you lie on it, let's give it a go, it does feel pretty comfortable. You know, I could easily sleep on this. In some ways, I think it's a bit more comfortable than its predecessor, unless you have two people sleeping here. You see, it's 106 centimeters across. In the T6, you had 115 centimeters of width, and that extra 9 centimeters does make a difference. So, sorry, once jumping in here, it's just that little bit more cozy for two, isn't it? You know, he doesn't like it much in the other one, but he particularly despises it here in the T7. Now let's check out the upstairs bed. I'm just going to jump up here. It's a similar story as it is with the downstairs. So it's slightly narrower up here than in the T6, so it's 114 centimeters across as opposed to 120 in the old van. It's also slightly shorter, but both are over 2 meters, so you don't really worry about that. But these new mattresses do feel a little bit more substantial than in the old T6, but that could be because those have just been used a lot more. Let's just try it with my sleeping partner. Now in these VW Californias, I prefer to sleep in the lower deck than up here because it just feels a little bit more insulated. Also, it can get very cold here in the night, but then in the morning as the sunlight hits this tent, it can get very warm very quickly. Fortunately, with this newer version, you do have bigger opening windows. They are able to let more light and ventilation through than in the old version. However, it is not all good news. You have two lights, one for your feet and then one up there. In the old version, you had two lights here either side and the light down there as well. But as well as a 12-volt socket like on the old T6, you now also get a USB which is just over here. So some you win, but some you lose. You also get some more USBs down here. There's one. That seems to be a cup holder, but there's this cargo storage area in the way that doesn't seem removable. However, ow! Let's see what's inside it. In here, that's probably a good place to store your socks and your pants and stuff. Then we have a net. It's nice of her to come along, isn't it? Obviously to stop your cargo sliding around. And there's these two other things in here. Can you guess what these are for? Hey, what are these for? Well, I'll actually show you in a moment because I want to show you this first. Now, if I want to turn off these, I'll just press that and those will go out. But if I want to turn them all out, all I have to do is get to one of these touch sensitive lights and double tap it, and all the lights that are on go out. So that's really handy. You don't have to go round like you do in many hotel rooms, turn off individual lights, which is an absolute pain. Another new feature is this central control panel here. So in the T6, that was combined with the roof control in the front by the rear view mirror, whereas now you have it here and you can do things like the air conditioning, look how much fresh water you got, how much wastewater, what's the state of your secondary battery. Then you can go into like your settings and change all of that and go onto the air conditioning and run that as well. One of the things I like is you can control your fridge through there, have it off and on, and then go into camping mode. And the thing about camping mode is that it will allow you to like use the battery and the electrics for 24 hours, and you can even run the air conditioning without the car on. And that brings me on to what these things are for. So let's say you not only want some cool air, you want some fresh air, but you don't want to keep your window down all night because you're going to get bitten by nasty flies. When you use these, so they've got vents with a mesh. So you take this, you wedge that up, and then oh, my finger! There we go. I made it look harder than it needed to be. If you're changing your car, then you've got to check out CarWow, because there's nothing quite like knowing that you're getting a great price, both when selling your old car and finding a new one. CarWow makes all the stuff that's hard work about car changing, like the haggling, the no-shows, and the nasty surprises, a thing of the past, life-changing. Now, if you want to go to CarWow right now, I'll put a link in the description of this video and the pinned comment. Alternatively, you can click on the pop-out banner appearing in the top right-hand corner of the screen now, or scan the QR code on screen using your mobile phone to go directly there. Car change, CarWow. Here at the boot, the actual load capacity seems similar to the T6, but there are some changes. First of all, this. So if you look here, you have your outlet for your shower and then your actual cold water input there. On the T6, that was on the outside, next to the electrical input as well, which in some ways makes sense, but it doesn't mean that it needs to be locked on the outside. Here it doesn't. I think overall, it's probably better to have it on the outside, so you don't have to keep raising the boot if you want to fill it with water. Then, when we go in here, this cupboard, that's where your shower head is kept. Now, unlike with the T6, where you can slide this part back to get easier access, you can't here, so it's a bit more awkward to deal with these things. Like two panels there, and then you can get your shower head out there and then attach it onto here. Kind of works. Where do you hang that? Where do you hang it? There's a place where you hang it, I'm sure. You're bound to hang it somewhere, aren't you? Where do you suppose you hang that? For this new T7, access to the gas bottle is easier than on the T6 because now there's a separate door for it here. Look. Da, 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 da. And there we go, it's in there, which is easier than undoing the screw top lid to access it from the top like in the old T6, so that's a win. Another benefit of the T7, which I think is linked to the fact it's now based on the car, is that you access a fuel filler cap like this, whereas on the old T6 you have to open the front passenger door to uncover the fuel filler cap, and that's just a bit more annoying. Another benefit of the new T7 over the T6 is that you can choose which side to have your awning on, whereas it always has to be on the right hand side of the old T6, whereas here we've got it on the left hand side of the vehicle. I also like the fact that the actual winder for the awning is mounted within the awning itself, whereas in the old T6 you have to go get it out of the drawer underneath the back seat. So use this key to unlock that and then you should be able to remove it. Should, he says. There we go. Look, oops. Sorry, Volkswagen. Let's get in and wind it. You do need an assistant to help you with this. The actual winder itself is a little harder to use though than on the old one, just because of the mechanism at the end here. And then we'll do, I hate this, it always hurts your fingers. This boy, take it down, and you lock it in place like that. Is that about right? Sort of. Get the idea. Thanks, Jack. I've put my awning up and my van in the wrong place. I've got to move it all. Another thing that hasn't changed is this, the picnic seats. Although the way they're held in is slightly different. In the old T6 you have some catches, which are actually easier to operate than these Velcro straps, but the chairs themselves are pretty much the same. Isn't camping so much fun? The blinds in this new T7 California in the back part of the vehicle are very easy to use. Look at that. So simple. I think they're better actually than in the old T6. For the front side windows you have these blackout blinds with magnets in them, so it just fits easily around the window. Once again, easy to fit. The windscreen seems a little bit more complex. You need to provide structure for it using this. I really don't know if I can be bothered. Right. I may as well have just bought a car with a tent.
A few moments later.
Right, now let's get it in the car.
More moments later.
Actually, I think it's probably slightly better than the system in the old T6. It just does a better job of keeping the light out, although it's a mild faff to do. Now let's check out the cockpit of this new T7 California. So there's something straight away I don't like compared to the old car, and it is this, the infotainment system and how all the climate controls are through these buttons or through the screen. Whereas in the old vehicle, you had physical knobs and dials, which was good. Everything else though, on this latest model is an improvement. So the digital driver's display is just slightly better with more information. I like the fact that you don't have a big gear selector or that manual handbrake anymore, because you've got an electronic parking brake and the gear selector is just there, so it's very easy to operate and it frees up all this space here. Then you have some cup holders down here, got a wireless charging pad there, you've got 12-volt socket in there as well. You've got an alright sized glove box, you've got a covered second glove box here, and you've got another cubby hole up here. Now come on, as well. Huge door bins, and the driving position is pretty good. I love these armrests, but you had these in the old T6 as well. And the steering wheel feels nice and expensive and car-like, and so do the control stalks. And thankfully you don't have the touch sensitive controls on the steering wheel like you have on the Volkswagen Golf. You've got old-fashioned buttons which are just much easier to use, so I'm glad that they've done that. And overall it looks pretty nice and car-like, and while the materials are all hard and plasticky, they look good and feel fairly robust. Oh, and I forgot, look, I can open the rear doors by pressing these buttons, which is handy if you've just let one go. Engine choices on the new T7 California. There's a 2-litre diesel with 150 horsepower and a 2-litre turbo petrol with 204 horsepower. All versions are automatic and front-wheel drive only here in the UK. Now the difference with the previous generation model is that the 204 horsepower version was actually a diesel as well, and that had 4-wheel drive. It's quite interesting looking under the bonnet of this latest California because it's so much more car-like. And unlike the previous generation model, you do have an engine cover with sound insulation, so it should be a little less noisy on the inside. But let's find out now by taking it for a drive. So the starting price of this new California is £63,000. So like for like, it's about £3,000 more than the outgoing T6. This one though is a range topping model with all the bells and whistles, all the functionality, and it's £82,000, which seems like a lot. However, your money is generally safe with these Californias. They hold their value so extremely well. And that brings me on to, is it worth having this new one over the old one if you've already got the old one? Well, in terms of the drive, I am noticing the benefit from being based on a car platform. It just seems a little bit smoother as it goes down the road, a little less jiggly, though there is still vibrations coming through the cabin when you hit bigger bumps. In terms of rattles, you do get rattles in these kind of things just because of all the trim. And interestingly, this one here, can you hear that rattle? It's coming from up there. This new kind of panel, I think it's a bit more squeaky. That T6, I drove it and it's done 18,000 miles, and I don't think it's really any more rattly than this one, but it doesn't feel quite so smooth. The steering is slightly more responsive in this as well. It just feels a bit more car-like to drive based on the fact that Volkswagen has built it on a car platform. So I think that if I could get that squeak fixed, I would definitely prefer driving this over a longer distance. But would I prefer it overall to live with and camp in than the old T6? Well, in some ways, I think the changes haven't been an improvement. Some are, but some aren't. There's always things sliding around in the California. And that's the issue. I don't think the actual living space is quite as good. I miss that extra slide out table. I prefer the set out of the kitchen in the previous generation model. However, I haven't owned and lived with one of these things, and that is the biggest test really. But from just checking out the functionality, I'll probably just stick with my T6 if that's what I already owned. But if I was in the market for one of these, would I buy a used California or a new one? That is a trickier question. So it would all depend on the price differential and the amount of warranty you've got. But I don't think that this new one is a definite no-brainer to get over the old one. So there's been some progress, but there's been some backward steps as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like. If you want to watch some other videos, click on the video windows. And of course, if you want to see how much you can save on your next car, click on the CarWow logo. Thanks for watching.